As I've mentioned before, the purpose of wokeness being infused into modern pop culture is all part of an ongoing, broad-spectrum, multifaceted process of subversion of Western societies, in the same way that social justice courses in certain universities have wanted trigger warnings added to classical literature because they're deemed too problematic or offensive, or the outright banning of certain texts on the grounds that there's too many white male authors or something. European peoples are reminded of how their past was too racist or problematic. He who controls the past controls the future, after all. Even the take a knee phenomenon in popular sports is designed to divide audiences. It gets the public engaged in a political debate that has nothing to do with the sporting spectacle itself. But when it comes to film and television, Hollywood studios are not stupid. They know full well that wokeness is unpopular and therefore unprofitable, but a clear agenda is being pushed in order to achieve the goal of a cultural transformation of Western nations. Wokeness is meant to suck because it takes franchises that have become institutions, inspirational and aspirational characters and stories that people have loved for years, and it utterly defaces them, sullies their legacy, and distorts their meaning and message. The purpose is to chip away at our values, morals, culture, and sense of identity. Today's popular entertainment franchises have become a very useful vehicle to reach the minds of the masses with political messaging. What we've witnessed at a macro-political level for several years now is the dividing of society along partisan lines. On any hot-button issue, there appears to be no longer any middle ground permitted. It's either left or right, no compromises allowed. There's no longer any give and take. This has been part of the process of divide and conquer. This has given rise to cancel culture as a result. And I wonder to what degree that divide and conquer element has permeated pop culture fandoms also. Because clearly, there's a good chunk of many franchises like Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, various comic book properties. There's a good chunk of the fan base who actually quite like the new woke, politically correct versions of these productions. There's clearly people who love Star Trek Discovery, Picard, Batwoman, and the latest series of Doctor Who, or the new Bond movie, for example, No Time to Die. Or they enjoy the latest less-than-stellar Marvel Cinematic Universe productions, or the latest feminism-infused Star Wars films. I'm sure there's even people who loved Ghostbusters 2016. And if you enjoyed these films and TV series, then good for you, though we'll have to agree to disagree. I certainly wouldn't want to live in a world where we all like and dislike the same things. But myself, and I think a sizable section of the fan bases of these franchises, are less than enthused by the creative direction and political themes being pursued by the producers of these properties. Fan bases have always found things to agree and disagree on, but in the 90s it was who's better, Captain Kirk or Captain Picard? Years before that it was who's cooler, Captain Kirk or Han Solo, whatever. It was good-natured, nerdy disagreement. These days, it appears that the divisions amongst fan bases are much less good-natured and far more fundamental and even antagonistic. We know that woke film productions are unprofitable at the box office, and woke TV shows have disastrous television ratings. There's more than enough evidence of that now, but the cultural revolution being pursued at present is being pushed upon us at all costs, it seems. So I think what we have to understand is the idea of going broke after getting woke is of no real concern to Hollywood right now. The agenda matters more than profits, and considering the gargantuan wealth of these studios, and especially their financiers, they can probably afford to make a net loss on such woke productions. The ultimate profit comes from the social engineering and long-term cultural change they can bring about. So short-term considerations like box office receipts can be overlooked. This is ultimately why shared values matter in a society, because it's one of the primary means of uniting people and ensuring social cohesion. This is why the subversion the West has been facing for generations has been achieved through gradualism and through attacks on basic foundational structures of the nation, such as family, creating divisions between the genders, and vandalizing culture and promoting degeneracy and moral decline. In media, this is evident in not just film and television, but in modern art, brutalist architecture, and garbage pop music. The vandalism of art is fundamentally an attack on beauty and creativity. The human imagination is capable of creating works of extraordinary ingenuity and value that can inspire and move us emotionally. So, by corrupting and debasing man's creations, diluting and undermining the quality of his work, it ultimately lowers man's own self-worth and sense of value. It's equally demoralizing for the audience as much as it is the original artist. This is how the seeds of nihilism and fatalism are sown within a culture. Add to this the fact that there's a bought and paid for mainstream shill media who go out of their way to champion the latest woke film or TV series and malign large sections of the fan base if they refuse to accept the decline in creative quality or outright vandalism of the product. This serves to create divisions within fan bases that never previously existed. In the case of pop culture icons, major entertainment franchises that have succumbed to the destructive nature of wokeness, this serves to alienate audiences from their beloved franchise and/or characters, but also to divide fan bases along political partisan lines that had previously never infringed upon or had anything to do with the original work. Throw in the mob rule of social media cancel culture for those who publicly denounce the political ideology or moral bankruptcy being infused into the film or TV show, and you've got a recipe for animosity and schisms between fan circles and a toxic and intolerant culture that's empowered and made all the worse by sanctimonious virtue signaling. This just leads to an overall disenchantment for a large cross-section of the audience who now feel disconnected and alienated from the franchise they once loved. You may have noticed that far too many of the most powerful franchises that have fallen into the cult of wokeness have become devoid of fun, hope, optimism, and inspiring stories and characters. Strong and clever writing and universal ideals of self-sacrifice, heroism, and overcoming adversity are largely absent from most Hollywood storytelling nowadays. It was these things that once attracted audiences in the first place. If fan bases are ever to be united again, it can only be achieved by appealing to quality of writing over the derivative and unimaginative crap we're currently getting, and also appealing to shared universal and traditional values and ideals rather than the subversive political ones that harbour a divisive agenda.